a knife slicing through the velvet-covered silence of the upscale French restaurant. People didn't just hear it, they felt it. It was the kind of line that made your stomach drop, not because of what was said, but because of who said it, and who it was said about. All eyes turned toward the corner table. There sat a man who needed no introduction in certain circles, Vincent Leclerc, billionaire investor, venture capitalist, and self-declared connoisseur of all things elite. Tall, dressed in a charcoal custom-tailored suit, wearing a watch that probably cost more than the average car, Vincent looked exactly like someone who believed the world should roll out red carpets for him, even in restaurants. Across from him stood a young black woman, the waitress, no older than 24, in a neatly pressed uniform, her hair pulled back into a simple bun. She was holding a menu in one hand, her other hand resting awkwardly on her apron. That woman was Aaliyah James, and in that moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. But if you looked closely, there was something else behind her eyes. Not fear. Not anger. Something quieter. Stronger. Patience. The room had gone still. Not even the clinking of glasses or the soft hum of background music dared continue. One man whispered, "Did he really just say that?" And oh, he did. Loudly. Deliberately. Like he wanted everyone to hear it. Like he enjoyed saying it. Vincent leaned back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other, and repeated himself with a laugh, speaking to his business guests at the table. Seriously. They sent her to serve me at the finest French restaurant in the city, and she can't even pronounce a single word on the menu. His guests chuckled nervously, unsure whether to agree or distance themselves. Aaliyah didn't say anything. Not yet. But her silence wasn't weakness. It was calculated. Controlled. That smile on her lips, calm and professional, never once slipped. Because Aaliyah knew something that Vincent didn't. See, Vincent thought he was being clever. He thought he was putting Aaliyah in her place. To him, she was just a waitress. A face in the crowd. Easy to dismiss. Easy to mock. But what he failed to realize, what so many like him always fail to realize, is that every person has a story. A reason they are where they are. A purpose they carry quietly, like a flame burning under the surface. And Aaliyah? She had spent years building hers. She had been through worse than arrogant men in designer suits. She had survived late nights at community college, walking home in the cold after double shifts. She had navigated rooms where people constantly talked over her, underestimated her, ignored her. And every time they did, she listened, she learned, and she waited. Waited for her moment. Vincent thought this was his show. But the audience in that restaurant? They were about to see a very different performance. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a person can do, is let you talk. Let you expose yourself. Let you show everyone what kind of person you truly are, without raising their voice. Without arguing. And then, with perfect timing, they deliver a response so calm, so controlled, so unexpected, it shatters you. That's what was coming. But no one knew it yet. Not even Vincent. Right now, all they could see was a billionaire throwing shade at a young black woman who, in their minds, probably didn't belong in a high-class French restaurant. But oh, how wrong they were. And how gloriously satisfying it would be, when the truth came out. If you asked anyone at Maison Lumière who Aaliyah James was, you'd probably hear the same thing. Oh, she's sweet. Works hard. Keeps to herself. She's polite. Shows up early. Doesn't cause trouble. To most, Aaliyah was just another face in the dining room. A kind smile with a notepad and a tray. Someone to take orders, clear plates, pour water, and vanish quietly into the background. That's the way it often is in the service industry. No one bothers to learn your story, they just expect you to serve theirs. But behind the apron and the soft smile was a young woman carrying a secret life, one few people could even imagine. You see, Aaliyah didn't just work at Maison Lumière, she listened. Every day, she walked through the doors of that luxurious French restaurant not just to earn tips, but to study. While customers ordered foie gras and escargots, she was mentally translating every word. While French businessmen joked in their native tongue, she was quietly dissecting their accents and intonations. While the chef barked out dishes in rapid-fire Parisian French, she was silently mimicking the rhythm, practicing her own pronunciation under her breath during kitchen breaks. Aaliyah wasn't just working for a paycheck, she was training for her future. 3 years earlier, she had fallen in love with languages after taking a free online course in French. What started as a curiosity turned into an obsession. She downloaded every language app she could find. She watched French news clips, studied grammar until 2 a.m., and even practiced tongue twisters in the mirror. She couldn't afford fancy tutors or study abroad programs. What she had was grit. Pure determination. And headphones with worn-out cushions that she used to listen to French podcasts while cleaning dishes. Her dream? To become a multilingual interpreter, maybe even work for the UN someday. She wanted to break barriers, to be the bridge between cultures, to make the kind of impact that went beyond her own neighborhood. But dreams don't pay bills. Not in the real world. So while she pursued her passion in secret, she worked to support her mother, who'd been in and out of hospitals for years. Her dad had walked out when she was just a kid, and with no siblings, everything rested on her shoulders. She worked long shifts. Sometimes back-to-back. Weekends. Holidays. The kind of work that made your legs ache and your brain feel like mush by the time you got home. But she never complained. Because every tray she carried brought her closer to her goals. In her locker at work, she kept a tiny French dictionary tucked behind her name tag. Pages were dog-eared, highlighted, and scribbled on. At home, she kept a notebook full of phrases she'd overheard from French customers, writing them down phonetically, then researching their meanings later. And yet, she never bragged. Never told anyone how fluent she was becoming. Why? Because she didn't want pity. She didn't want praise. She didn't even want recognition. She just wanted to be ready. She knew one day, the moment would come. The day when someone, maybe even someone powerful, would assume she was just another uneducated girl behind a tray. Someone they could look down on. Talk over. Dismiss. And when that moment arrived, she wanted to be able to flip the script. Not with anger. Not with shouting. But with undeniable skill. Aaliyah didn't chase applause. She chased excellence. Quietly. Consistently. Relentlessly. That's why when Vincent Leclerc laughed at her in front of the entire restaurant, when he mocked her intelligence and her ability to do her job, she didn't break. Because while he'd been building a life out of stock portfolios and private jets, she'd been building herself. He saw her as a servant. But she was so much more. She was a scholar. A fighter. A storm wrapped in calm. And the thing about storms? They're quiet, right until the moment they strike. Vincent Leclerc was not used to hearing no. When you've spent your entire adult life surrounded by yes men, million-dollar deals, and luxury at your fingertips, humility becomes a foreign concept, something you've only seen in movies, never experienced in real life. Vincent wasn't just rich. He was the kind of rich that made people nervous. The kind of man who walked into a room and everyone stood straighter. Waiters checked their uniforms twice. Managers triple confirmed the reservation. The chef stepped out of the kitchen just to personally say hello, not out of warmth, but fear of a bad review, or worse, a powerful tweet. He had the kind of money that didn't just buy things, it bought power. And Vincent loved using it. Born into wealth, Vincent had inherited his father's investment empire and then doubled it in just under a decade. Tech startups, foreign energy companies, a yacht line, even a private luxury school in the Alps, he had a hand in all of them. He wore his wealth like armor. Designer watches, imported suits, $2,000 leather shoes custom fitted to his exact arch. He never had to open a door for himself. He never had to remember a name, assistants whispered those into his ear before he even entered a room. But the one thing Vincent lacked? Respect for people he thought were beneath him. That's why, the moment he saw Aaliyah approach his VIP table with a notepad and a simple black apron, something in him curled up with amusement and cruelty. She didn't look like someone who should be working in his presence. He didn't care that she was polite, or that she greeted the table in perfect English with a soft smile and a subtle bow of the head, as the restaurant had trained her. All he saw was someone who didn't belong in his world. Someone he could turn into a joke. So when she handed him a menu and asked, "Would you prefer the English or the original French version, sir?" he smirked and waved the English menu away dramatically. "Please," he said. "Let's do the real thing." Then, he flipped straight into rapid, fluent French, the kind used only by Parisian elites, peppered with slang and regional pronunciation that would leave most beginners completely lost. He didn't just order. He performed. His voice grew louder with every sentence, his accent sharper, more exaggerated, because he wasn't just speaking to Aaliyah. He was putting on a show for his business partners. A public test. And he expected her to stumble. But when Aaliyah calmly replied, "Let me double-check the chef's availability for the specials, monsieur," he leaned back, grinned, and delivered the line that made the whole restaurant go silent. "Elle ne peut même pas lire le menu." She can't even read the menu. He said it with the kind of careless cruelty that comes from a life without consequences. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even trying to be clever. He was just dismissive. As if he were commenting on a fly that had landed on his napkin. The laughter at the table was forced. Tense. Even his business guests didn't know how to respond. A few of them glanced at Aaliyah, unsure whether to laugh or apologize. The restaurant manager, a man named Carl, who had worked in fine dining for 20 years, froze mid-step. He had seen wealthy guests be rude before. But this? This was something different. Public. Personal. Ugly. He began walking over to intervene. But then he saw Aaliyah's face. And something stopped him. Because she wasn't hurt. She wasn't shrinking. She was smiling. Not in a fake, "I have to smile because it's my job" way. No. This smile was cool. Calm. The kind of smile someone gives when they know something you don't. It was the look of someone who had just been underestimated, for the last time. Vincent didn't notice. He was too busy pouring himself another glass of wine, too full of himself to realize what was about to happen. Because in his world, women like Aaliyah didn't speak back. They didn't challenge him. They didn't surprise him. But in just a few seconds, that illusion would be shattered. And when it broke, it wouldn't just bruise his ego, it would humiliate him in front of the very people he was trying to impress. Because Aaliyah wasn't going to walk away from that table. No. She was about to speak. And she was going to do it in the one language Vincent thought he owned. Aaliyah took a slow breath. Not because she was nervous, but because this was the moment she'd been preparing for all along. Years of late-night lessons. YouTube grammar videos on 1.5x speed. Link you flashcards. Pronunciation drills in front of cracked mirrors while her mom slept 2 rooms away. This wasn't a reaction. This was a reveal. She straightened her posture, tilted her head just slightly, and then, with the kind of precision that would make a native Parisian nod in approval, she spoke. "Monsieur, je vous prie de bien vouloir excuser mon apparente ignorance." Every syllable rolled off her tongue like silk. No hesitation. No stuttering. Not even a trace of an American accent. Her voice was calm, clear, but there was weight behind every word. Confidence. Control. The entire table froze. Vincent's glass stopped midair. His eyebrows twitched. Aaliyah continued. Je tenais simplement à vous laisser finir votre spectacle avant de vous proposer le vin à peu près pour accompagner votre entrée. I simply wanted to let you finish your performance before offering you the appropriate wine to accompany your appetizer. Gasps rippled from nearby tables. One woman actually covered her mouth. Even the head chef, peeking from the kitchen doors, looked stunned. This wasn't some clumsy tourist French. This was educated, flowing, fluent. But Aaliyah wasn't done. She turned slightly and addressed the entire table, the businessman who had been chuckling along with Vincent moments earlier. Et pour ce d'entrez-vous que souhaitent de recommandations supplémentaires, j'ai pour vous fournir une description détaillée de chaque plat, y compris les ingredients et les origines régionales, en français ou en anglais. Comme vous préférez. And for those of you who would like further recommendations, I can provide a detailed description of each dish, including ingredients and regional origins, in French or English. Whichever you prefer. Boom. Just like that, the power shifted. Aaliyah wasn't just showing them she could speak French, she was commanding the room. Her voice wasn't raised. She didn't have to shout. That's what made it all the more devastating. While Vincent had used volume and mockery to elevate himself, Aaliyah used quiet authority. And the contrast? Crushing. Vincent blinked hard. He opened his mouth, maybe to defend himself, but nothing came out. What could he say? That she didn't belong? That she was just a waitress? He'd just been outclassed. Publicly. Elegantly. Without a single insult or curse word. Without lifting a finger. One of his business guests leaned forward, visibly impressed. That was remarkable, he muttered. Another nodded. Honestly, that was better French than I've heard in Geneva last month. Vincent's cheeks flushed red. He reached for his water, trying to hide the trembling in his hand. But Aaliyah wasn't gloating. She wasn't smirking. Her expression remained calm, professional. She had just delivered one of the most satisfying clapbacks in history, and still, she kept it graceful. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about respect. And she'd earned it, not just from Vincent's table, but from every single person watching. The restaurant, still in stunned silence, slowly came back to life. A table nearby started clapping softly. Then another. It wasn't raucous. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, but powerful, a recognition of what had just happened. Aaliyah gently bowed her head and said, in perfect French, Je reviens tout de suite avec votre bouteille de Châteauneuf du Pape. I'll return shortly with your bottle of Châteauneuf du Pape. Then she walked away, straight-backed, composed, leaving Vincent in the wreckage of his own arrogance. He sat there, silent. His grin had vanished. And for the first time in a very long time, he had to confront something unfamiliar. Humility. Because you can buy status, you can buy attention, you can even buy fear. But you can't buy class. And that night, Aaliyah taught an entire room full of wealthy elites one of life's most priceless lessons. Never underestimate someone based on the uniform they wear. Because some people wear aprons today, and run empires tomorrow. Word traveled fast. By the next morning, Aaliyah's moment had gone viral. A customer had discreetly filmed the exchange and posted it online with the caption, "When the waitress you mocked in French replies better than your Parisian tutor." In less than 24 hours, it had racked up millions of views. Comments flooded in. Queen energy. I need a movie about her. Vincent just learned the hard way, never test a quiet genius. This is what real intelligence looks like. Grace under pressure. Even major news outlets picked up the story. Not for the scandal, but for the inspiration. A young black woman, self-taught, humbling a billionaire with elegance and mastery. She became a symbol. Not of revenge, but of rising with dignity. Vincent? He went silent. No tweets. No statements. Just a long, quiet disappearance from the public eye. Humility has a funny way of showing up, even if you don't invite it. As for Aaliyah? The restaurant gave her a promotion within a week. Not out of guilt, but because it was long overdue. More importantly, she finally had the spotlight she deserved. Universities reached out with scholarship offers. A nonprofit language institute even invited her to speak on self-education and perseverance. And the best part? She accepted an internship with a diplomatic organization, one step closer to her dream of becoming a world-class interpreter. But through it all, she remained the same. Humble. Focused. Kind. Because for Aaliyah, this wasn't about going viral. It was about proving to herself, and others like her, that background doesn't define brilliance. Effort does. Character does. She once served tables. Now, she's serving notice to the world. Don't underestimate quiet ambition. Because when the time is right, it speaks volumes. And there you have it, a billionaire silenced, and a waitress transformed into a global inspiration. What did you take away from Aaliyah's story? Let us know in the comments below, we love hearing your thoughts. Speech balloon was it her grace under pressure? Flexed biceps her quiet determination? Brain or just the sweet, sweet taste of instant karma?